our company, even though it's based in New Hampshire, we work with professionals in this business from all over, especially Los Angeles and New York, and actors and key crew and everything. But someplace like America is it's a national story, but we're setting it in a part of the country, a region of the country that is a great example of the national dilemma of the disenfranchised, of joblessness and all that. So, what's so cool about it is that to tell a good story, you have to have you have to be place specific, and you have to deal with real characters that are in that place. So Aaron and I had to find this locale in order to set the story, but it is a microcosm of the whole, which is America and what's going on. And so that's what I'm really excited about, or one of the many things I'm really excited about with this project, is we did find that place in the North Country of New Hampshire where the paper mills have all closed in the last 5 years. And it was the industry up there. And what that's done to that region is enormous economically. And what's the human aftermath? What's the human byproduct? The struggles the people have had to deal with up there. And a lot of our movie, the story deals with that, and the whole sense of people coming together and the need for community and the hope for the future, and how people are survivors and can get through these things. That's what excites me. What excites you about this?
Well,
my friend.
My friends would say, New Hampshire? What are you doing in New Hampshire? I thought some of your book was like the post-industrial wasteland of the Midwest. And, just as if you can go in any suburb and find like the Michaels and the Staples and the Bed Bath & Beyond and the Wendy's, there's kind of a look to the exurbs. Well, there's kind of a look to industry. When Ron was filming some of the behind-the-scenes stuff of the dead factories in Youngstown, somebody noted just last night up in Berlin, hey, that looks like our town 5 years ago. I mean, a big abandoned warehouse looks like a big abandoned warehouse.
A big old
anywhere.
Mill.
Yeah.
The paper mill looks like a steel mill.
And so, if you look at the movies that were done on the effects of the Vietnam War on men, dealing with survivor's guilt and post-traumatic stress disorder and readjusting, they didn't say, oh, well, he was in Khe Sanh, but that guy was in Da Nang. No, it was the war. It was the war that did that to them, and the separation from their family, and these horrible scenes. Well, it's the same thing in a post-industrial America. I really don't care if it's Youngstown or Berlin or Oxnard, California. What happens when a man defines himself by making something and feeding his family and working for an honest pay, and that stops? There's a pretty universal thing that happens. In World War I, they call it shell-shocked. It was just this thing that happens when what made you get up in the morning stopped. And so, is it specific in a sense to the North Country, because we are going to deal with an area in which it's got this odd dichotomy. It's beautiful to look at, and yet here was this scar in the middle where all these people worked and were the gears that turned the town. So you can stand on the hill by the Russian church and overlook the city and go, man, this is a postcard from a church bulletin. And then you look closer and you realize some of the houses are abandoned, or that factory's closed down, or that guy that had a $25 an hour job is working over at McDonald's. And so what we want to look at visually and story is that breakdown of what was, and talk about what's going to be. But the problem is we're now in the where are we going to get what's going to be. We don't know that answer yet.
Yeah.
So what we're really doing, it's kind of like an autopsy. We hope to find out what happened to this guy in hopes of making sure it doesn't happen to some other guy. Find the Ebola virus and stop it. And so it's going to be looking at industrial policy. It's going to be looking at trade. It's going to be looking at globalization. It's going to be looking at how much do corporations owe a community that made them rich. How much, last night the discussion came up. Yeah, we could make it cheaper overseas. But at what cost? Destroying this town?
Yeah.
I'll pay $3 more for a tire. No problem. You know, so what we're going to do in a story, but visually too. I mean, I'm a photographer, and you know, Ron and I have discussed some things about images that are both literally interesting, but symbolic, macro, micro.
Right.
So when you see Joe Blow in a soup line, Dale was talking about the people in Muskegon, Michigan. I've seen those faces a million times. It doesn't matter if it's Berlin, Portsmouth, Youngstown, Cleveland. These are people who had the rug pulled out from underneath them. And we're going to tell their story. You know, people get their story told about the, really good Tom Hanks film about World War II or a great Spielberg film about World War II. I don't think the definitive movie about the great American worker has been made.
No, and I also feel like there's a one of the goals that we all have is to have an audience member walk out of this film and have a sense of, okay, maybe I've learned a little something about how to make this better in the future. And you know, that's a goal of our company, and that's the kind of movies we want to make. Every movie, every project we tackle has to have that kind of arc to it, so that it ends up with a sense of the future and where it's going and so on. But like what you're saying, the sense of having or trying, what are the lessons to be learned from it, and to tell the story in such a way that you don't directly hit on any answers, but you really start asking the questions in such a way that people really start thinking about the possible answers and how this country can become a better place to live in the future.
I remember I did a story many years ago when they were reinstituting the draft, and it was a young woman. It wasn't the draft, it was registering for the draft. And a young woman made a big deal, held a press conference, I want to register. And they're like, no, you can't register, you're a girl. And she says, no, I want to be part of the military-industrial complex. Because I want to sit at the table when people decide to go to war. I want to be one of the voices, not just 8 white guys talking about why we're going to go to war. I want to be the different voice. Because you're not going to ask, most likely, about poisoned water, about what's going to happen with the women, what's going to happen with the orphans. It's like women ask different questions. And when you bring in somebody in the mix that's going to ask a different question, it's not even that she was supplying answers. She was just asking the question. And I think when you look at how we're going to rebuild America, you need some different people from the community, not bankers, not investors, not conglomerates. You need different people at the table to say, have you thought about what's going to happen to the high school football team? Have you thought about what's going to happen to the future generations of people who've passed down these great skills? Yeah, you'll make money overseas and et cetera, but it goes back to what I said a minute ago. By asking the question, you get some very scary answers that could affect policy or your decision. They weren't even being asked.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think some of the rubber companies in Akron really said to themselves, man, what'll happen to Akron if we pull out? That's Rubber City, USA. What are you going to have? So what? You have some pension of some guys that you let go? That's not a city anymore. That's not vibrant. That's not people making things. I think we would all be willing to lower our standard just a tad to see to it that we all keep doing our little gear in this machine that makes for a society where everybody has a shot at happiness and work.
Right.
But you got to ask those questions.
Yep.
And I think the one thing's going to have to happen after this recession, different people are going to have to. I mean, right now we have a president that looks real different than any president we've ever had. What a great start. Somebody at the table go, have you thought about maybe we need to educate some of these kids in the inner city whose dads lost their jobs? Maybe we need to build some better schools. Maybe every school should have computers, not just the rich ones. Just asking the question, you're forced with some brutal, sad answers about the unfairness of the way we live. And it starts with jobs.
Yep.